Computer, okay. Hi, everybody. I am Lynne Constantine, and I am thrilled to have three amazing authors here today on Thriller Talk Thursday. They're going to each give a little introduction about themselves and their work, and then we'll get into some discussion. So, Samantha, you want to kick it off?
Yes, I am Samantha Downing. I wrote My Lovely Wife, which came out last year and is now out in paperback, and Lynn is kind enough to hold it up for me. And my next book, He Started It, will be out in the US in July.
Wonderful. Jen?
Oh, me?
You, yeah.
Me? Hi, I'm Jennifer Hillier. Oh, me? Author of Little Secrets, and my book just came out last week. It's a domestic suspense psychological thriller about a woman who loses her child in a busy farmer's market and then discovers a year later that her husband is having an affair with a much younger woman, and that the two things might possibly be related. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I have a child the same age as the kid who gets kidnapped in this book.
Hi, my name is Gilly Macmillan. I'm the author of 6 psychological thrillers now, and the one that's currently out is The Nanny, and it's a twisty thriller. It's about a family, English aristocratic family with very dark secrets at its heart, about a nanny who disappears and a woman who is caught at the center of it all as a girl. And Tess Gerritsen described it as a dark and twisted version of Downton Abbey gone very, very wrong, which I particularly love. It's out now as a hardback in North America and will be out in trade paperback in the summer in a very different jacket, so look out for it, looking very different.
Well, I've read all 3 of these books, and they're all amazing and page-turning and nerve-wracking as anything. So I want to just go and ask a couple questions. So Samantha, you write really dark, twisty characters. I mean, even more so than I think some of those in the genre. But there's something about them, even though we know that what they're doing is wrong, that we just find compelling and drawn to. And I'm just wondering, do your characters scare you? Like, how do you, when you're developing them, how do they come to you? Are they fully formed? And is it hard to write such kind of intense, deranged characters?
They come to me one step at a time, because I don't plot or outline my stories. So as I'm writing, I have an idea and then I go with it and it develops. And the way it does not scare me, because the first thing is I don't write any graphic violence or graphic what they're doing graphically. It's all implied, and I stay away from that aspect of it. So I think that's when it would get scary, if I had to write in detail what somebody was doing to another person. What I try to concentrate on is how they justify it to themselves, because unless you're talking about somebody who's psychotic and doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, all of these people, even sociopaths, anybody that breaks the law has a way to justify it to themselves. Right. Even if you talk to somebody who cheats on their taxes or embezzles money, they have an excuse for it. They say, everybody does it, or what have you. People justify these things to themselves in order to do what they do. So even if you don't have empathy, like a sociopath doesn't have empathy, they still know right from wrong, whether it's right and wrong in the law or right and wrong morally. They know what's right and what's wrong. So they have to come up with a way to justify it themselves. And I try to concentrate on that aspect of it. How are they excusing their own behavior? And that's how I think of it. So I don't find that scary. I find it very fascinating to people do terrible things, whether it's cheating on someone or whatever it is. They have a way that they justify it in their brain.
Right.
So I think I try to concentrate more on their motives as opposed to the actual act of what they're doing.
Yes, you give them a very interesting code of conduct, or they have their own code of ethics, which I think most of us would say, okay, I don't even know if we would call it ethics, but yeah, you do a terrific job of that, because I mean, I could not read that book fast enough. So, all right, so I'm going to turn to Gilly, who wrote The Nanny. First of all, did you have a nanny, Gilly, growing up? Yes? Hopefully not.
No, I did not.
Oh.
No.
Okay. I was so tense, nervous reading this book that it took everything I had not to just flip to the end to make sure that it was going to be okay. And so I was just wondering, what tools do you use to create this unbearable tension that you have in your book? Is it something that you really plot out, or is it character driven? Does it just evolve naturally because you do an amazing job of it?
Oh, thank you. I don't plot like Samantha. I don't plot my books. I tend to start them with a kind of an idea that I think is neat or compelling. Like, for example, if your nanny disappeared all those years ago and then somebody turned up in your life in the present day claiming to be that person, what would happen? And when I've got something like that, then I try and cast it with characters who I think will be relatable, will be compelling. I always like my character, even in this book, which is a kind of British aristocratic family, my main character Jo, she's fled that family. She's a regular woman, and I try and make my characters relatable to people like me, because it's not my background, that aristocratic thing. So I'm always trying to think as a reader. So I use the devices we all use. I try and bring in twisty plots, unexpected happenings, scary stuff. But most of all, I think I'm character-led. So I will write the first draft is really character-led. And then I'll take a look at it on the second pass, and I will really interrogate myself, will this turn pages? Does it turn pages? If I was reading this, would I want to know what happens next? And that's the question I ask on every single page in that draft, and I try and make sure the answer is yes. So that's the process, really. It's really messy, and because I don't plan, my first drafts can be a complete car crash, frankly. So I'm a big editor.
That's great that's a great point about will this turn the pages, and it's hard to put a lot of that stuff, isn't it, when you've put stuff a lot into it and then you have to go, no, this chapter just doesn't move it forward, right? So
yeah, if it's not doing its job for the reader, then it has to go. Yeah.
Okay, so now Jennifer, in Little Secrets, you tap into every parent's worst nightmare, and that is of having your child be abducted or disappear. And as you mentioned before, you have a child about the same age as the child in the book. So I'm just wondering, did that make it easier or harder to write? And how were you able to take that, to live in that world as you wrote that book, knowing what a terror that would be as a mom?
Yeah, I mean, I write about what scares me. That's the stuff that inspires me. And then now that I have a kid and he's 5, there's so much more things that scare me than there did before. And I feel like it was a natural fit to kind of explore what would happen if my worst fear came true, which was suddenly my child is missing, and maybe he was kidnapped. And then I wanted to dive into the space of what would happen if I never knew what happened to him. What would that feel like to not know? And similar to what Sam said about just kind of the motivation of why people do things is what's the most fascinating. What would I do? What would a mom do? How are you going to handle the grief combined with the not knowing, trying to keep your head above water, have a life still? What does it do to your marriage? What does it do to your relationships or your career? And so a lot of the book isn't so much a kidnapped child, missing kid story. It's really about the aftermath and how it affects all the characters involved. But it took me to a really dark place, because you're literally, I was literally imagining the worst thing I could imagine happening, and then trying to be authentic with what I think my response would have been. And I don't think I would handle it well at all. I think I would have a lot of probably very unhealthy ways of coping, which in the book is what happens to the character. And I think it would be a destructive journey. And so I wanted to kind of watch that downward spiral, figure out where the bottom was, and then figure out where you go from there. So it was, after the book was finished, I kind of needed a break. Couldn't think about it for a little while. I watched a lot of reality TV, like fluffy stuff, just to kind of pull myself back out of the space. And it was hard in edits too, because then I'm diving back in every single time. So it was weird, but it also kind of Yeah, and now it's cathartic because now I've imagined the worst, so maybe the worst won't happen. Or if it does, I'll know what to do because I already explored all of it. So I don't know. It's writing is such a crazy,
It's
crazy way of dealing with
yeah, it was brave, I thought, and then I thought you did an amazing job with her, and and then I loved getting a look into the other woman, who of course I despised, but it was still interesting.
Yeah.
As
And I
Sam was
didn't
saying,
want, and I didn't want, yeah, I didn't want to ignore the much bigger woman either, because I thought she had a voice and I thought she had something to say, and so, and I really kept the focus on the women's stories and left the cheating husband
yeah,
kind of as a background
yeah,
character, but
yeah,
I wanted to know what motivated everybody to do what they did.
yeah. Well, it was excellent. So talking now together a little bit, this genre, which I'm sure a lot of us, when we wrote some of our books, didn't necessarily choose to pick to write in a genre, but we all kind of ended up in the psychological or thriller, domestic thriller, which has become hugely popular, thankfully, and hopefully will continue to be. And I think we're starting to see a lot of other authors who maybe weren't particularly writing in this genre gravitating toward it. So I was just wondering, if a different story captured your attention, would you veer off into another lane, or do you think you'll continue writing here? Do you think that as authors and our readers expect a certain thing, that we have some leeway to do that? What are just some of your thoughts about story and genre and author identity? Anybody, just kick it in and talk amongst yourselves.
I've tried to write books that don't involve serial killers, and then someone ends up dead, or even trying to write a love scene, it goes bad somehow, and I don't know how to brighten the work up, I guess, because we write such dark stuff, and I just feel drawn to it. But I've tried. I would love to write something contemporary that I don't have to then preface with, "This is a really dark story," just letting you know.
Yeah. So you're going to probably, this is what you're drawn to. I mean, I'm going to let you all answer, and then I'll give you mine.
I think for the foreseeable future, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I think what Jennifer said earlier about writing to work through your fears really chimes with me. And I think that's why I'm attracted to suspense genre, because it's something you can do when you write suspense. And I'm not necessarily planning to stay in the domestic genre, but I would certainly probably stay in the suspense genre. Although I have to say I do love historical fiction, so I'd love to try one of those one day.
Oh, that would be good. How about you, Samantha?
I've written in a lot of genres before that were not before I was published, that have been all over the map, from the coming of age story. I'm convinced every writer starts with some sort of coming of age story.
Yes. Yeah.
Always the first.
They're so great.
And it may not be the one published. For some people it is, but for some people it goes in the drawer. But yeah, I get ideas all the time that are of other genres. I don't have the time to do them right now, and I don't know if I would have a chance to, because right now I'm putting out a book a year, so it takes up my time. But yeah, I definitely get ideas for it. So I would do it, yeah, if I had the time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It's funny, the coming of age, because Valerie and I wrote a book years ago, like that was a coming of age, circle dance, two sisters figuring out their identity. And I think you're right. You sort of work out your own stuff in that first book. And then we do the psychological. And then, of course, I'm doing some conspiracy thrillers, but again, using a different name, Elsie Shaw, because again, for the confusion. So, it's interesting. There are a few authors I feel like who kind of can write, like Jodi Picoult. Seems like her books, right? She writes a pretty wide range. I mean, they're still trademark Jodi, I think, but yet she can, some of them are more social commentary, some are more thrillery, which is interesting. But, it seems as though publishers kind of want you to sort of stay within that, because, you don't want to all of a sudden have a romance and someone, Jennifer's picking one of your books and they're like, wait a minute, where's the darkness of it?
Yeah.
But
I'd be happy if I submitted something too cheerful.
Yeah, exactly.
They work on marketing you a certain way, and then you have I hate the word brand, but I mean, it's kind of, you get known for doing a certain thing, and I don't think people like it when you change gears too much.
I think
Yeah, I
the
think
point about
mostly it has to
writing.
be. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I think your point, Samantha, about writing a book a year is a really good one, because that is a fairly grueling schedule. Well, it is for me anyway. And I think you just don't have the opportunity to deviate from your genre while you're in that channel. And it's a terrific and privileged channel to be in, but it definitely doesn't leave a great deal of time to do much else. And I'm a huge admirer of anybody who can write any more quickly than that. And yeah, the brand thing is interesting, because if a publisher's invested in you and getting you out on the shelves in a certain package in a certain way, and that's been
Are
successful,
you
it's really
guys
hard to
all
step
doing a
away
book
from
a year?
that,
Like
I think.
that's your pace?
I'm doing it 2 now because but you have to remember I'm writing with my sister. So, that helps when she and I write together, the word count is half. So
And which takes longer, writing the stuff that's just you, or what takes longer for you, writing the stuff that's just your own, or writing with Val?
I've only done my second one on my own, and I had to write it about the same just because I have no choice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have to do it within a
Right.
4 to 6 month period. But it was much more grueling and more out. So I would say on my own, because that was the one where I actually made a spreadsheet and said, this is how many words you have to write a day. And you can't get up until you write it. And I would sit in my office, and like, whether it's not good or good, I would write it and edit it later. So, we'll see. I don't know if I can keep that pace. I mean, definitely want to keep the Liv books coming once a year. The Elsie Shaw, we'll see. It's a series, so we'll just have to see how that goes, and maybe can have a little more breath in between a year and a half, 2 years. So the second one of those comes out in September. That's The Silent Conspiracy, which is a follow-up to The Network. So, but yeah, and it's harder, because then I'll get stuck on something, and I'm like, oh, let me call Val. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not ready this one with her. So I have nobody that.
Not her book.
Yeah. So that makes it a little bit challenging.
Those are all my heroes. That's a pace I tried at the beginning of my career, and it nearly killed me.
Really?
Just the back-to-back books was like, it's hard to do, and I need a lot of downtime after I write something. I feel really like drained, and I don't even want to read thrillers for a while. But God, I wish I could write a book a year.
We also have you have a 5-year-old. I mean, that makes a big difference. My children are in college, right?
I could use that as the excuse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an excuse. I mean,
I'm a slow writer, though. I'm a slow writer, and I think a lot about things. And then my first drafts are terrible, so I need a lot of revision, which I then do on my own before I send it out, because no one's allowed to read anything unless it's the best I can put out. I'm not good at asking for help, and I think all of that slows me down. If I was better at asking for help and I wasn't like stuck and then swirling in my own confusion, which is what happens with every book, I think I would be faster. But I'm really weird about sharing the book until it's the best I can do, and then
that's the perfectionist
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What do you all do? Because I mean, we'll do 2 or 3 rounds, and then we have about 4 beta readers. One of my husband is one, and our sisters-in-law, and a couple friends, and we will give it to them. And that way, we see if we get like a consistent. Well, this was slow here. Or we can understand that, and it helps us do our final draft. But what about Samantha and Gilly? Do you let anybody see it, or do you wait until it goes to your editor before sharing it again?
Yeah, I have a writers group. I'm in a small writers group, and they actually read as I'm drafting. So I get their immediate feedback, because I try to, since I don't know where it's going and I don't plot, it takes me till about that halfway through, maybe even longer than that, until I know what the ending is. So then the beginning has to be revised to match that ending. So I actually do that as I draft. Once I figure it out, then I go back and I fix. But I get a constant opinion, not during this period, but when I'm writing, we meet every week. So they read what I wrote that week is what they read, and I get a constant feedback, and so because they read that in draft form, they never actually read the revised copy of it. I have to send that goes out to other beta readers, which are not writers. So I get an actual reader's opinion and not a writer's.
And that's so important too, because readers will look at it differently than writers will, right? Sometimes you get caught up in wanting to impress your writer friends or your writer beta readers, and forget that readers have a whole different take on what you write.
Exactly, and they're not looking for the
Good
same
point.
thing. But I find it crucial because I could be off on left field thinking I've written a character that's totally likable, and then they say, this guy's a jerk, what are you doing? You know, I was like, oh my God, in my head he was great or something. So I find the feedback, I like the feedback. I don't have to get it in perfect form like Jen, so I guess maybe but if I didn't have that feedback, I don't know, I might have a whole lot more revisions on my hand.
Right. That's
I work really closely with my agent, so she will read stuff as I'm, excuse me, as I'm writing. And I've had to learn. I used to be like you, Jen. I used to really want to sit on it like a kind of hen on her eggs. That's how I felt about it until it was completely perfect. But I can't do that at this pace. So I've had to learn to share with my agent, and she is a very tough critic, but also really, really comes in with some amazing notes. So she helps me move it on. My husband reads, but he's too nice. He just says, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, we all need a cheerleader though, right?
Well, we do. He's
no
my
matter what, we'll
cheerleader.
say, this was great.
Yeah,
Loved
exactly.
it.
And then it'll go straight to my editors, and it goes simultaneously to editors here in the UK and in the US. And so they will come back, they will club together with their notes and come back to me, and that's when we start the real work, really.
And that's interesting. So your two editors collaborate and give you one manuscript back together?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they'll collaborate, and they'll also collaborate with my agent. And then the three of them will come back with a big set of notes, and then off I'll go, because we don't have time to kind of do it any other way, really, because I don't deliver that early. So yeah, that's how it works. It's a nice system, actually.
That's great.
That is great. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. All righty. Well, I guess we are going to jump into now our two truths and a lie section to get a little personal. So why don't we start with Gilly? Will you tell us two truths and a lie, and we'll each see if we can guess which is the lie.
Okay. So they are as follows. Number one, I have an intense phobia of garden worms. Number two, I've never read any of the Harry Potter books. Number three, when I was a kid, I was a passionate reader. That's all I did. But all I really wanted to be was a circus acrobat.
Wow. I am going to say the lie is the worms, the intense fear of the worms. What do you guys think?
I was going to say the same thing, the worms.
I'm going to say Harry Potter.
It is the worms. Actually, my husband's phobia. We do have that phobia in our family.
I hate worms. Ugh,
Specifically worms, though? What, like not slugs or?
It's just worms. It's specifically worms he hates. Yeah, we can terrorize him if we find one.
That's how I feel too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right, Jennifer, how about you?
Okay, I'm nervous to do this because I'm a good liar in my books, but I'm a bad liar in like person because my face does things.
Poker face.
Okay. I used to be a backup dancer for a hip hop group in the early 90s. Or I changed my major 5 times in college. Or I named my son after the fictional serial killer in my first 2 books.
Okay, you guys want to guess first?
I think number 3 is the lie.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3.
I'm going to say what was the hip hop is the lie.
The hip hop is the lie.
Serial killer.
It's fantasy. But no, my son is named after the serial killer in my books.
That is wild. That's just, well, how are you going to explain that to him one day? You know, when he reads the book and says, Mom, like, what is this about?
Well, I have an alternate lie because the official story is when I was pregnant, I was reading one of my gossip magazines like Us Weekly, and they did an update on Angelina Jolie, and they showed a picture of her son Maddox, and I then read, and I'm like, oh, Maddox, that's a good name, and I went and Googled it, and it didn't really have a specific meaning, and I thought, oh, Maddox, and it stuck, and so that's the official story that I tell people. As I was reading a celebrity gossip magazine and found the name in there, but the reality is, in the first 2 books that were published long before I was pregnant, the serial killer's name was Abby Maddox. So.
Okay. All right, Sam, you're up.
Okay, so I have traveled across the country in a Greyhound bus. I have been to the South Base Camp of Mount Everest. I have run with the bulls in Pamplona, Spain.
What do you guys think?
The lie is the bulls.
Yeah, I agree. I think the
That's
lie is the
dangerous.
bulls.
Yeah, I think the bulls is bull.
I got all of you. I've never been to Mount Everest. I've never been anywhere near Mount Everest.
Oh, wow. So you have run with the bulls.
I ran with the bulls, yep.
Wow.
And I've been to
Wow.
Pamplona and run with the bulls. And I've done the Greyhound bus.
I figured Greyhound bus, because of the writing. Interesting. Wow. And I figured you changed majors as a writer.
And I would never, and I would actually never go to Mount Everest because I hate the cold. So
Because why? Why
I
would you
wouldn't go out of my way. I hate the cold.
I hate the cold too. Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's cold there.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on today. And I hope everybody, well, again, if you want to hold your books up one more time for readers, again, this is Samantha, my lovely wife. And then I'll bring
Thank
mine out.
you.
This Wife Stalker coming out in 3 weeks. Little Secrets just out. The Nanny just out a few months ago. All absolutely amazing books. And I hope you guys stay safe and well. And that I can see you next time in person soon. Okay. Thanks. Take care.
Can't wait.
Bye.
Thank you, Lynne.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Should we do a screenshot here? Hold on. One more.
Okay.
Ready? Got it. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thank you so much. It was nice to see you
It
all.
was lovely to see you all. Thank you.